1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 1 through 13. Hear the word of the Lord. If I speak in the tongues of mortals and of messengers, but do not have love, I'm a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I'm nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, and do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends. As for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part, but when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, but then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, and the greatest of these is love. Word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. I've spent a lot of energy and time over the years digging into questions of orthodoxy. What is right thinking about God? What is the correct interpretation of a biblical passage? What is the most accurate way to reflect theologically about God, the Bible, the church, the larger community, and the world around us? It's been central to my theological training, my church life, my tradition's message about what matters and how to define real Christianity in the face of so many disparate ways of understanding and applying faith. Along the way, some have said the Bible and the gospel are simple to interpret. My library begs to differ. And yet there is some simplicity we have often overlooked. The larger world around us knows what we have often failed to accept. Jesus' message of love for all is within reach of any who give his words even a cursory glance. Perhaps more of my time and energy would have been better focused on orthopraxis, doing what is right. Jesus did not give us a large degree of theological insight. He did not spend so much time and energy on concerns of theology. Sure, he offered some clarifications on God's will and character of grace. He spent much more of his time and energy focused on questions of orthopraxis. What is the correct or best way for us to live? He taught these things in words as well as in actions. He challenged other Pharisees to go further in making the worship of Yahweh a spiritual practice that inundated all of their relationships under the banner of God's love, grace, and inclusion. He challenged practices and attitudes that limited acceptance, love, and grace for different classes of people. This is what Paul is getting at in today's passage. This text we often read at weddings is not about romantic love. It's not about familial love. It's about the love God would have us express to one and all. It is the love we should share with family, church, community, members, and even non-members of a society that does not even know or embrace God. It is not some feel-good emotion that elevates our mood akin to the warm fuzzies we get from watching a kitten at play. It's a choice. It's a decision. It's an attitude that focuses goodwill on others around us. Love makes them feel good, seen, heard, worthy, like they belong. Too much of what we call love focuses on ourselves. It is all about my feelings. It's about what I get out of a relationship. It's about my benefits. It's about my feeling cherished and valued by others. That's rather much the way we tend to think of charity, in which it feels good for me to give away something that means little to me, yet must mean much more to another. We might as well be clanging noisy gongs or cymbals to bring attention to ourselves, to make us look and feel good, superior. Remember the story of the Good Samaritan through which Jesus unpacked what loving a neighbor looks like? He patched up the injured man's wounds, took him for longer-term care, paid for a couple weeks of his needs, and went on his way promising further payment as needed on his return. He did not count the cost to himself. He was not seeking reward, publicity, or anything else for himself. He saw someone in need and assumed the responsibility to provide what was needed. When the love Jesus and Paul call for enters the picture, the self-interest goes out the door. There's no room for it. Self-interest dissipates to be replaced by something far greater. Pride, standing, and ambition have no place in the face of love. It's rather like those pesky grandchildren, kittens or puppies that invade our homes. They make a mess. They make no real contribution. They clamor for attention, and we offer what is needed to meet their needs and welcome them into our lives. We don't do it grudgingly. Well, at least not most of the time. We do it openly, rejoicing in doing good to and caring for the needs of another. This is the only reward we seek for it. This love is its own reward. I still value my education, training, background, learning, and experience. Love, however, calls me to base my worth not on those things. It calls me to use them for the benefit of others, the whole of the church, the community at large. It calls me to see myself as a participant in the human race, with gifts, talents, strengths, and opportunities to encourage others along our shared journey of life. Even as God has offered me blessing upon blessing, so am I called to use all I have been entrusted for the common good out of God's love working through me. There's been a lot of rage in some circles lately against megachurches and preachers who seem to place self-interest far ahead of doing the things the gospel requires. We've seen far too many examples of lavish living by people claiming to speak for Jesus. Lives lived in obvious self-interest do not simply fall short of the ideals of faith. They oppose the message of Jesus, Peter and Paul, actively. It's not that the gospel would require us to be paupers. Rather, God requires we see ourselves more as participants in a larger community, a community in which everyone has equal worth and value. Love calls us to offer others patience when we do not understand their hurt, pain, and anger. Love calls us to respond in kindness, looking for unmet needs others may not even know how to express. Love requires we abolish any penchant for demeaning others through envy, boasting, or arrogant attitudes. Love requires we seek good in others and for others. Love requires we exchange our preferences for looking to the needs of all. Love requires letting go of resentment to care for all who are hurting. Love seeks to defend the truth of our belonging to one another as equal partners in life, in the world of God's creation. Love shares hope, encouragement, and strength with all. Despite all I may have learned or attained, it will not survive for long. Its impact will be of short duration in the larger scheme of life and eternity. Despite what contributions I might make in biblical exegesis, preaching, theology, or planting a biodiverse orchard, there comes a point when it all will lose its meaning. Its impact has a limited lifespan. What can and will endure is love. It's love that carries through beyond tomorrow. It is love that makes a lasting impact. My mother prepared some wonderful meals for me over the years. It's not on her if I go hungry tomorrow. But those meals had their moment, their impact in time. What lingers is only the knowledge of her love for me. She took me shopping for shoes and clothing I no longer own. Her concern and care are with me still. My parents demonstrated what it meant to love others, to help those in need, to teach, to help, to encourage, to equip. The direct impact of those actions may have run its course. The love expressed is still making itself known, still impacting the lives of others. I've read a lot of books. I've listened to many sermons. I've written many thousands of words over the years. I've taught a lot of classes. I've preached sermons and produced recordings. I've studied much and learned several languages. Those are not the things that will transform the world. What will matter in the end is how I have loved the people I have encountered. That is the heart of the gospel. It's also in easy reach of anyone willing to apply it. Why would we make more of lesser issues while ignoring the centrality of love? Where better could I possibly focus my time and energy? Isn't love enough?